We're live. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to Logic Apps Live. So we're excited to get back to you with some new things that we've been doing. We've had a very busy week, besides our holiday break, if you're here in the US and had a nice Thanksgiving. We've also been able to announce the release of Power Apps, and that's been greatly accepted by the community, and it's going to be a pretty interesting product. I'll have some links later that you can find out some more about that stuff. One of the things that we've added in the last month is the ability to do monitoring. So I want to do a short demo so that you can see what our monitoring looks like now in Logic Apps. Go ahead and share my screen. Working. Okay, I think we had a slight technical glitch. I hope this is all working. Maybe you can test it to see if it's still there. I'm going to go ahead and try to share again. This time I will share. Let's do this. Entire screen. Okay. Well, we won't do that again. Keep on getting booted off of Google. So let's share some other way. If I can share. I'm going to try one more share. Hopefully, we're safe this time. Share. Cross your fingers. Ah, great. That looks better. Can you see it from sharing correctly?
No, but it's working.
Okay. We don't have our fabulous technician Jeff here, so he's usually when it went off again. But it's still, yeah. What? Are we good? I don't know. Oh yes, I think we're okay.
We are good.
We're good. Okay, great. Yes, we're missing our fabulous technician Jeff, who usually handles these broadcasts, and it's give that a chance to catch up to my sharing the wrong thing.
Okay.
Yep.
I can tell we're missing Jeff a little
there we
bit.
go.
He's out of the office now for a couple of weeks. So apologies for the technical glitches.
Jeff is on paternity leave.
Yes.
How dare he have a child? It's still not being shared. Okay. Let's try sharing something else. That. Yay, nay? Is that working?
Just a couple of seconds.
Sharing your screen. Okay. So it says I'm sharing. Fantastic. But it's not the right screen.
Yes, it is.
Yes, perfect. Okay, so now you should be seeing my portal. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to a Logic app and show you how monitoring now works in Logic apps. So on one of my Logic apps, I called it Ping Checker. I have a simple Logic app that goes out and hits a URL and checks to see if it's live and sends me an email in case it doesn't, it's not live, and then finally sends me a tweet if it doesn't. So this is my Logic app, but let's actually go ahead and scroll down here. If you scroll down, what you'll notice is that now we have meters, metrics. It's fantastic. So now you can see some interesting data. If I go ahead and click on that, you get a nice broader view. And so we get a bunch of interesting metrics that we can now look at. One of the things you can do is choose the metrics that you want. I'm choosing for the past hour, and I've chosen run latency, the runs completed, runs failed, runs started, runs succeeded. But you can actually continue to select the run rate, success latency, success percentage, and runs canceled. So this gives you some really great insight into the Logic apps that are running, and you can monitor this data at any rate you want. One of the things you have to do when you configure this is, let's go ahead and show you what the configuration settings is. When you first come to the screen, you'll get prompted to go and configure your diagnostic settings. You'll turn it on, and then you'll have to pick a storage account and then enable the metrics by checking this box. Now, what's interesting about now that you have to choose a storage account is that now all this metrics data is going into your storage account. So it's stored as blobs. So, which means you can go interrogate it on your own. You don't need to look at the dashboard to go look at that data. For example, if I go into Visual Studio, let's not make sure. Let's go ahead and share. See Visual Studio.
Yep.
What? Visual Studio.
Popped up.
Visual Studio, come on. I'm hoping you guys get to see what I'm seeing. I'm looking over my shoulder to make sure the broadcast is correct. Nope. Share. Okay, please don't crash. Okay, so now in Visual Studio, you can go to your Azure Explorer, and in your Azure Explorer, you get to look at your storage accounts. There it goes. It's working, great. And if you go ahead and enumerate your storage accounts, this East storage account is the one I had chosen to configure with my metrics. So if you go ahead and drill into that, you get to see these insights. So now you get actually to have access to the insights data, and there's a folder hierarchy that it uses. So it goes to the resource ID, and then to your subscription. Here's your subscription. Then resource groups. Here's the resource group that I used. Providers. This is Microsoft Logic workflows. And then I have actually 2 Logic apps that's configured with that storage account. So look at Ping Checker, which is what we're looking at. And notice now that you have some folders under here. So you get to look at metrics for both actions and triggers. You didn't see triggers on the portal, but if you want to go ahead and interrogate it yourself, you can. So I go under triggers, and there's a recurrence. We'll see this is for this year, December 3rd, and then these are the hours that it's storing. So in UTC, so 19:0. And so these are the last hour of metrics. So now I have this JSON file that contains all the metrics for those triggers. If I go ahead and open that up, we can see that in this file, we have metrics for the triggers fired, the trigger fire latency, trigger success latency, trigger started, triggers completed, and trigger success percentage. Is there a few more? Trigger rate, and trigger skip percentage. So you get all this data, and so this is storing data every minute into your file, and you get to go access that data. So you can go ahead and do interesting stuff with that data on your own without having to use the portal. So let's go back to our slides. So that's metrics. So we've added metrics, and that's going to be hopefully very useful for everybody. I'm going to go ahead and back to sharing. Let's go to my slide deck. Don't crash. Pause to make sure that you're going to see what I'm saying. Seeing what I'm saying now?
A few seconds.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So now we have what's going on. So what's new? So I just talked about metrics for logic apps, and in that you get to see the different run metrics for your logic app. And I also showed you how you can go and interrogate your storage account in your blob store, so you can find the actual data that's stored and look at not only the run rates for your actions, but also for your triggers as well. Power Apps with Logic Flows. We've released Power Apps in the limited preview. And in that Power Apps release, we actually have a great Logic Apps experience within that. We're calling it Power Apps Logic Flows. You get to see a preview of that at the Connect event that Stephen did last month, and he'll give you insight to that designer that we've used and the experience of Logic Flows within Power Apps. One of the things that's going to be really interesting is that designer that you see is going to be our new designer or updated designer that we're going to release in our next set of releases. So, John, take it away.
So yeah, so one of the things we like to do in this Logic Apps Live is talk a little bit about what we're doing next, and this time we're going to look a little bit further out. So we've got a timeline with a number of milestones on it. The first one is early next year. We're going to be refreshing the designer. We've mentioned this before, so we expect that to preview and you guys to be able to access that around the beginning of next year, with lots of great new capabilities, the ability to see the sort of implicit control flow in a Logic app, and be able to understand and it more clearly and get some new capabilities there. Another part of this, which is to do with the Power Apps announcements earlier this week, is we've got some architectural alignment. So with the API management capabilities, that sort of brings together the back end and the connectors that are available in Power Apps using exactly the same backend infrastructure and connectivity across Logic Apps as well. So what in that the refresh or the designer improvements will have all the connectivity and data sources available that were showed off with Power Apps at the beginning of this week, available as part of the new Logic Apps designer experience as well. And then kind of in addition to that, we also have the ability with built-in API connectors to actually consume Swagger directly. So today, you may have an existing API app, and that API app will have its own Swagger. You'll be able to point straight to the Swagger endpoint of that API app or anybody else's and just connect that, wire that up using the designer. And you'll get the card experience, which shows the metadata and that's the configuration of that connector. Moving on from there to sort of late spring timeframe, we're going to preview the Enterprise Integration Pack. Now, this is a set of capabilities targeted at enterprise integrators, so around the types of things that Business Services provided. So the validate, extract, transform, and route pipeline capabilities, so that you can validate messages, you can pull properties out of those messages, you can do transformation and routing of those things as well. Also, the B2B connectivity, so things like X12, support AS2 will be available in that preview as well. And then hybrid APIs, so connectivity from the cloud to on-prem will all be as part of that enterprise integration pack preview. Moving sort of further out into early summer, so a little bit later than that enterprise integration pack, we're going to GA Logic Apps. I know this is something you guys have been waiting for a little while, so we're really excited to actually get that to GA. And what that will bring is the remainder of the connectors that you see in Logic Apps today that will be lit up across the whole piece and available in Logic Apps, and a whole bunch of additional connectors that won't be there in preview that will release as part of the GA. So we're kind of complete in terms of capabilities and connectivity with what we have today, but with the shiny new design, all the great capabilities and engine improvements that we talked about before. And we'll talk about it again in the next Logic Apps Live to go into that in more detail. So the improvements in control flow. And then beyond that, we're going to GA the Enterprise Integration Pack around about summertime 2016. And that will give obviously the general availability and the support and SLAs around that, but also the additional enterprise capabilities. So things like disaster recovery and tracking improvements and some other stuff that round out what we know that enterprises need to run integration workloads using our platforms today, and how we light that up in the cloud with our Logic Apps platform.
Fantastic. I'm really excited to be able to talk about our future plans, and not just about next month.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, one of the things that I think we've touched on before is we're actually working on a roadmap around this as well, which we'll be releasing really soon, which actually goes into more detail around this timeline, and also kind of covers our other integration capabilities, specifically Business Server and services, and how all these capabilities are kind of enriching our platform and providing more options for everybody.
Fantastic. Woohoo.
Yeah.
So here we have a few links. John had mentioned some updates to the API app architecture, and so you can follow these links to read more about those updates to the API app architecture and how that may affect your existing API apps. So what do we have in progress? Webhooks. We still have webhooks in progress. We are working on it diligently to get that out to you guys, but it will. It's taking a little longer than we thought. But it's not that we stopped work on it. It's just that we're making sure that we're doing a really great job on the webhooks before we release it to you. Alerts. So we saw that we had monitoring. The next thing that will light up is enabling alerts, so that you can create rules. So in case a certain number of Logic Apps, for example, is failing in a period of time, you'll get an email indicating that you have issues with your Logic Apps. And then finally, improvements to the Logic Apps Designer. So that's that first bullet on the arrow that John had talked about. And it's going to include the API management capabilities, which is this connection concept allowing you to be abstracted from the configuration that you had to do before, and the API app switching to the latest API hosting infrastructure. So that's where we'll host a lot of those connectors for you in our infrastructure, so then it makes your lives a lot easier and reduces deployment complexity. As always, please come to our Logic Apps forum if you want to vote for features. If there's something that's missing and you care about and want to vote on, please go here to go ahead and vote on it. At the end of the deck, let's go back to.
Yes, I think just looking at the questions, I think
you got questions already. Great.
The slides aren't progressing as we go through. We'll figure out a way to make the deck available so that you can sort of see the details that Kevin just went through. If the slides aren't catching up with us talking. Okay, I think he's pulled up now.
It's a little lag behind.
Yeah.
Okay. So more Q&A. Let's see. So you're looking at the Q&A thing?
I am, yeah. So let's go through these. So hi guys, are the BizTalk API connectors do they still work in a similar way today? Pick and choose instead of having to buy a pack. Yeah. So the connectors have been available across everything. So you'll be able to try them for free and play around with them there. And also if you need much greater usage, which we expect enterprises to require, then yes, you can move up through the SKUs and the options we have available in different tiers to get the uses that you need. But you won't be constrained into having to pick a particular one to get those capabilities to try them out. Most of the clients really like the idea of pick and choose. Yeah. So when they need this or when they move to the cloud, yeah. So those capabilities, as I said, will be available across the different SKUs. Will the connectors in your GitHub end up in the marketplace? Yeah, that's something Jeff and I are actually looking at right now. Again, as Ella just mentioned, those we kind of built ourselves over the last few months, I guess, and they should just work as is, using the ability to kind of natively consume the Swagger. But we're looking at pulling those in and what that looks like and holding them in the marketplace. We're not quite sure the timelines for that. We're definitely aware that we need to do that work, especially around. I think we've got machine learning one and a couple of others which are really well used. So we want to make sure that they're easy to find and configure and consume. Finally, another question. Custom API app, how to deploy and see as a connector. Right. So is that actually that's a question around how do I build a custom API?
Let's see that.
Top
How to
one,
deploy and see a connector as a connector. So for the custom APIs, if you read that article that you couldn't see the link to,
we'll share the link.
yeah, we'll share that link a little later. It tells you about the updates that will come with the API apps. But in the new designer, once you point at your API app and it's self-hosted, you'll really be able to interrogate that Swagger and create a great experience for you. So the hosting experience is actually a lot simpler than it was in the past. In the future, we'll have different hosting models as well for doing private installations of backends, but that'll come a little later in the year.
Yeah, so basically you're covered in terms of requirements. You have existing API apps you've written, you'll be able to consume those. And if you're interested in building these things for other people to use later on, that will be possible, as Kevin mentioned, a bit further out. Okay, I think that's it for the questions that we've got right now.
We apologize for the technical glitches.
Yeah.
This was my first shot at being the broadcast producer.
Yeah,
and
we should have Jeff back for the
okay.
next one.
That's right. So it should be a lot better next time.
Yeah. So
Okay.
are we done? I think
so.
all that leaves us to remain is to wish everyone sort of happy holidays, and we look forward to talking to you again about what we've been up to over the coming month in January. So
Fantastic.
great stuff. Thanks.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, Gary.
Bye-bye.